Hello everyone, I'm back and this time I'm making a video about the Basic System 3 by Doepfer. They kindly lent me this system to try it out, make a video if I wanted to. I've had this for 2 months, so plenty of time to explore it, and it's pretty fun because I never had a Doepfer module in my life before, except like for a clock divider and a sequential switch, so nothing crazy, super basic modules. So I was really psyched that they asked me to try the full thing. It's called the Basic System, but there's pretty much nothing basic about it. It's really full-featured, compact, and beautiful. You have 2 VCOs, a wave shaper, 2 different filters with different flavors of filtering, and all the utilities you could wish for. It's Doepfer after all. Throughout my modular journey, there was always more enticing option than Doepfer, I guess, especially when you're starting. I wasn't maybe a fan of the look, whereas right now I love the look. I think this look absolutely gorgeous, and I wouldn't mind have this box stay here for a little longer. But yeah, sometimes Doepfer is overlooked. That's how it is. They invented the format. They have basically one kind of module for everything you would wish for. But I don't know, when there's the option to get something else, some people get something else, me included. So I'm really glad to test the whole thing. I think it works beautifully as a whole. We're going to use the Doepfer Dark Time to keep it in brand. Hopefully discover a few of the modules. I'm not going to deep dive on each module. Nobody cares about listening to a saw wave. Basically just patch this thing because it's fun. And I think a lot of people would be surprised how fun it is, because I was. So let's get right into it. So I guess we can start with listening to a few of the waveforms. Maybe I just said that's not interesting, but let's do it anyway. That's a sine wave, triangle wave, square wave, saw wave. Always handy to have a switch for the range on board, fine-tuning CV2. Basically, you can think of the first row as being maybe more audio-oriented. Couple of VCOs which are identical. This is a ring modulator, sendpen and hold, and slew limiter. This is the voltage control wave multiplier, very important module, very characteristic of the Doepfer sound, I would say. Basic audio mixer, which always useful to have. This is a low pass with a few different outputs, up to 48 dB low pass, which is super steep and quite nice to have and not very easy to find actually. I think this is more or less close to a Moog filter. Then you get the multimode filter, which might sound vanilla, but it's actually pretty characterful. Both of these saturate very easily, and most people have the idea that Doepfer is super clean, and you'll see that's not entirely true. With this module, these two, there are plenty of points you can saturate the signal. Then you have a couple VCAs, one that's linear and exponential, and one that's only exponential, but with 2 inputs. Audio inputs, some noise, blue and red. This influenced the level of the random. This is some of the newer modules, dual LFO. You can see it's a bit more tiny, a bit more packed. Dual LFOs, so nothing much to add to this except that you have VC control over the rate, I guess. The clock divider, this is the modules I had. Actually, these 2 modules I had. This one I still have. Those are classic, beyond classic, super useful. A mixer, which you can mute and invert with the switches. Also, this is one of the newer modules. You can see it's much smaller than the classic 8 HP with big knobs. This is the VC slew processor, so very useful surge inspire module. We can see later the use you can have for this. Then you have 20 HP blanks, so plenty of space to add a bigger module or a few smaller ones. An envelope generator, classic one, a dual, and a ADSR. Again, these 2 modules, newer line, smaller, so dual ADSR and a mixer which has mono input, but you can pan those sound in the stereo field. So, okay, enough talking. I think that's the overview. I have the Doepfer dark time running. So super simple, extremely boring patch. I'm tweaking the wrong filter to start with. Yes. Sending a sine wave into a fully open filter is really not interesting. Even if you close the filter, basically you just lower the volume. Let's take something with a bit more bite. Still, the level of excitement is quite low. You can add some emphasis, which is the name of the resonance here. The fact that all these outputs are available at the same time means that with some creative patching as VCA or with the sequential switch, you can morph between these or just switch between these. We can take another output, like I was saying, into the CV2. And then we turn our filter in more of a low pass gate, especially with the 48 dB, but each and every of these outputs will have sort of a longer release if you want. But I like the 48 dB because it's super steep. And one thing I noticed with this envelope is that it reacts super well to different gate length, which you can do with the Doepfer dark time. Basically, we are two level wise here, so you have a lot of possibilities to overdrive your signal. Let's keep it midway. Then you can use one of the pitch outputs to modulate the CV as well. And then we can bring some FM if you want. Starting to get closer to sound I would potentially use. So you can hear the difference the second row of the dark time makes in terms of gate length. For example, everything is at minimum here. And here I'm just making a longer gate for the last step. You can add some swing. Have your modulator follow the same 1 volt per octave signal. And let's patch this into the other filter for comparison purposes. Low pass. Of course, the settings are not going to be the same. You can also use the mixer for mixing different waves. Which is a classic patching technique in synth. Maybe we'll remove the FM for now. Up. Let's bring the sine wave. So you get the bass of the sine wave. Some of the harmonics of the saw wave. Then you can bring some more. Of course, that's extremely dry for now. The ADSR has this switch here for the time range. So we're in medium here. It gets super short, which is great for percussive sounds. And longer, which doesn't really work at 138 BPM. You have some offset for the VCA. You can do linear or exponential. Here's the high-pass filter, which sounds really nice, I think. Bandpass filter. And the notch. And what if instead of using all this, we were using the ring modulator? Again, we can have the first modulator track the same pitch sequence. The further you are from, you can get some nice clunky tones. bell-like tones. Of course, more hair if you use different waveforms. I've put the second row of the Doepfer dark time in random, so we get some slightly strange random bells. Let's put everything in random order, but we might be crazy after a while. With a more constrained range, let's offset the second row. Back to normal. I like that ring modulator. I use it all the time on the Swayman that's just on top of the Doepfer A-100. Another thing I like to do is instead of going straight into my oscillator, I like to slew my CV, so let's use the slew for this. And you get some slidey goodness. And you have control over those curves. You can make it cycle, which in that case turns into something quite strange. It's more obvious with a stronger signal, a 5-volt sequence. Okay, so now let's focus on the wave multiplier. I think this is one of the strongest modules of the bunch, definitely the one with the most character. Let's just start by patching a sine wave into the input and turning knobs so you can get a feel for its sound, and then we can add some modulation later. This definitely impacts tons of character. It's a wave folder, but it's much more full-featured than the previous one I had experience with, which is the one from the complex oscillator in the Verbus complex oscillator, the timbre section. So this has different options: multiples, folding levels, symmetry, harmonics, and a level input, which already is capable of distorting the sound. So we have a sine wave. We don't need an oscilloscope to guess what's going on here. We can try to have maybe 2 beating waveforms going into this. Let's me just have tune them more or less close enough. So let's take this into the input. That's already adding some modulation. Crazy how the beating waveforms react into this thing. Let's add some effects and turn this into a drone patch. Let's just go back to our original sine wave. Pretty nasty. These are obviously attenuators, as far as I understand. No need for a filter. Let's try to bring our beating wave. Try to go through the filter and another filter because we have two, so why not? Sending random into the filter. The first one, which is in low pass 24 dB mode. Second one is a notch, and we will send a copy of that LFO, or maybe an envelope. Yes, let's take an envelope. I think that's a pretty nice drone. Ready. FX courtesy of the DP4. It's a dark reverb and some flanger chorus. That's beautiful distortion to my ears. There's some liquid goodness added by the filter. Here, the resonance following the random. Added a cycling slew to low pass VCF8